And I do believe that the gratitude muscle is something that needs to be exercised, right? And
Right.
so it comes,
Absolutely.
it even goes so far as to this young man who was, I think he was 23 years old, a young guy coming to me. He kept coming up to me, asking me. He really wanted. He was hungry for growth, and he's wearing his cross, and I kept reminding him that that's the thing to focus on, right? Is how do I develop that heart, right? And as we were talking, I understood some of what it was. Some of what it boils down to for him is this feeling of, I don't want to call it resentment, but this feeling that he didn't get treated the way that he wished he would be treated by his own father. That the expectations and the way that he interacted with the two other brothers were different. And of course that's the case, right? Because we're different people. But he had this he was clinging to this, I don't want to call it a woe is me because I don't want to minimize what he was going through, but he was clinging to this deep need and desire to be loved the way that he saw it in his head. In the conversation, as I was sharing with this group, he and I had some heart to hearts privately, right? And we processed some information together. But in the sharing about the gratitude practice and asking that question of what could you become grateful for if the only things you could keep in your life are the things you were grateful for, I looked at him, and knowingly between he and I said, and nobody else knew what I was referencing, but he did, and I looked at him and said, if you're not grateful for your father speaking to in a way that you didn't quite appreciate, then you don't get the lesson that comes with that. You don't get the growth that comes with whatever the hardship was, right? Whatever
Yeah.
value that came out of your hardship, you can't keep it unless you're grateful for the hardship. Could you become grateful for the hardship at that point? And that was a moment, he said. He came up to me afterward and he said, thank you. It's like, yeah, it makes sense now. Everything we've been talking about makes sense now. And that's something I had to come to. Tony Robbins shared it. It's when your worst day becomes your best day, your life changes. When you realize
Sure.
the worst thing in the world wasn't the worst thing in the world. It felt like it at the time, but the person I became as a result, the value that I bring to other people as a result, it's something I can't be ungrateful for. I have to be grateful. It changes your heart, and it sounds hocus pocus, right? And anybody listening to this would be like, oh man, this guy's off his rocker. But man, if you become grateful, if you go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish that thought because that brings us into two cliches that I want to sort of
Yeah.
deconstruct.
So all I was going to say was, if you develop that grateful heart, if you really cultivate the spirit of gratitude, it's not so long after that your resentment goes away, your bitterness and anger goes away, because those attitudes, those emotions, those frequencies can't exist together. So the gratitude brings you to a place of, in my own experience, and maybe somebody else's is different, but of real love, right? I have a quote on my arm. It says "Tu comprends, c'est tu pardon," which I'm sure I butchered. What's his name? Justin Jones is gonna be like, that's not at all how it's pronounced. Shout out to Mr. Jones. Um, but it means to understand all is to forgive all, right? And gratitude gave me a gift of understanding. Gratitude brought to me a gift of forgiveness and love, because it allowed me to say, hey, if you want grace in your life, you have to give grace. If you want love in your life, you have to give love. If you develop a heart of gratitude, I promise you, as hocus pocus as it sounds, your attitude towards life will shift so far to the positive. And it takes practice, right? It's that muscle that we were talking about. But I promise, like, there are gifts in the practice of gratitude that I never saw coming, right? And I'm not
Yeah, that I
perfect.
mean